What's up, everyone? This is part 2 of a special interview series with Marshall Fogel. Part 1 was last Sunday. You can check it out on our page. This one gets into more of the present of the hobby, PSA versus Fanatics, and what it's like to collect now, what to avoid, what does he think of one-of-ones, and gambling and breaking and those sort of things. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. The final part of this series will be next Sunday.
It's called the War of the Worlds, Fanatics versus Collectors Universe. And it's going to be better to watch that than Star Wars when those two giants are going at each other, like PSA bought SCD, and Fanatics bought the PWCC. And so what they want to do is who's going to control the industry. And so if those people out there that aren't thinking about it, it's more fun than a TV series.
Do you have any predictions on what might happen with the two of them? Like 10 years from now, what is it going to look like between the two of them?
There's a lot of money behind both of them. I'll tell you, this Michael Rubin that started Fanatics, I understand that he sold used bicycles out of his garage. And Nat Turner, who is the CEO of Collectors Universe, is, he was a techie guy and had invented stuff in college. So these guys are no dummies. But I think what Fanatics has done is they beat Panini. Panini's gone now. And Michael Rubin bought Topps, and he gets to sit at the table at Major League Baseball. This guy. If you're going to have dinner with him, you better hold on to your checkbook. The guy's amazing. And Nat Turner, who I know as well, these guys, they're business people. And I think what's going to happen is they're trying to control the industry vertically, okay? They want to control everything. And as far as who's going to win this thing, I hope they don't self-destruct. But I don't think they will. I mean, I think there's going to be room for both of them. So one of them might be bigger than the next, but it's kind of an interesting story on the side of what we're talking about today. It's like two big, fat Humpty Dumptys banging each other to death, and somebody's going to fall off the wall. That's how I see it.
One of the things that Fanatics is definitely into, and a lot of other companies are as well, is breaking. So card breaks. There's a lot of talk in the industry around how breaking literally is just like a version of legalized gambling. And I'm just curious, how do you feel about that? Do you agree that it is a form of gambling? Or do you feel that it's something different?
I don't think it matters because it's going to be there. And I look at it a little more globally in terms of the question you're asking me. Modern cards, okay, that includes the breaking of these sets and so-called gambling, where, if you pay $500, maybe you'll get the one card that's worth $8,000. That's gambling. Do I think a 12-year-old kid is into it? Hell yeah. Jeff Wilson just opened up a 14,000 square foot store in Atlanta, Georgia. He's got a break room and a podcast room. And I mean, these aren't the little card shops anymore. I mean, these are Gucci stores. So as far as the modern card market is concerned, look, this is a contrived industry. Vintage cards are not what's going to make these guys pop and make a lot of money because it's a limited amount of what's out there. So the modern card market is propping up Collectors Universe and Fanatics because they own the card companies, some of them, and it is a form of gambling. But if I were a collector, and you're going to pay big money for Tom Brady and all that, and Duca and all that, they're going to be gone, and nobody remembers Sid Luckman, and nobody remembers some of these guys like Dr. J. They're going to fade. So you got what it's doing in the industry. It's making it better, bringing more people in, and it's becoming affordable. So you know how many Tom Brady cards are there? Thousands of them. Michael Jordan.
Thousands.
You can buy some beautiful cards for $6, $7 now. And so what it's doing is it's creating a whole industry of young kids, which is great to get into collecting this stuff. And when they get older, some of them are going to have a lot of money. And they're going to buy a 1915 Cracker Jack of Honus Wagner and a photo of Mickey Mantle for $250,000. So in my opinion, when you talk about the break and all this stuff, it just brings more monsters into the game, and it's going to just make the industry better. Fanatics is into a lot of stuff like, signed baseballs, T-shirts. There's a whole retail industry out there. Colorado Rockies glass plate. It's just junk, but people like it.
Marshall, there's kind of a one-of-one craze right now, where there's obviously overprinting, and just last year Panini had, I think, 6,000 different one-of-one cards. I have another vintage collector friend of mine, and he said something last week that really stuck with me. He said vintage cards weren't made to be valuable, they just became valuable. And I think about that, and I think about what is happening to cards now. Well, they'll put a number on it, and because there's a number on it, it scares. Or they call it one of one. What do you think about the one of ones right now that are being made right now, and do you think their value will hold up over time?
Look, I'm anything that's contrived. It's like Beanie Babies. Let's start there. Remember Beanie Babies? People were paying thousands of dollars for the new Beanie Baby. It's 101 Beanie Baby, and they put books out. Well, how long did that take before it collapsed? And now you take your Beanie Babies and you can put them in the trash. Well, it's like 89 Upper Deck. Well, they said they're only printing a limited amount of them, but they didn't. They didn't tell the truth, and they printed tons of them. And so then in the 90s hit, and they overprinted everything since 1990s, billions of them. I think that you're stupid if you're going to pay $250,000 for a one-on-one. You know why? Because the person that's making them is going to make more one-on-ones until finally people realize that there's like 19,000 one-of-ones of these people, and pretty soon it isn't worth anything. So what I'm trying to tell people is, look, if you want to collect one-on-ones, that's fine. If you want to pay, but you got to remember, the more you pay, the more they make. And every time you get involved in this contrived stuff, you're a sucker. If you're gonna, why pay $50,000 for a one-on-one of Tom Brady that signed a sticker and they slap it on the baseball card? I mean, think about it. They're not signing these cards. There's some of them are, but they're signing a sticker, and they put the sticker on the card, and then they make the thing, and then it's just. Why would you buy that when you could buy a PSA 8 single-sign Ruth ball for less money? I mean, or you could buy a Mantle bat for less money, a real one. And then what do you have? A card of Michael Jordan that's one-of-one, and there's tons of them. I mean, you can tell I'm really taking off on this stuff because I think it's stupid money. Boy, am I going to catch hell for this.
The coolest thing you said there was something I couldn't put into words, but you just did, and you said, the more you pay, the more they're going to make. That is so true. That is so true. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Nick, you're speaking to the choirs. Nick said, Marshall, Nick and and I think the audience knows that him and I are very much like on-card autographs, in-person type autographs. That's kind of our wheelhouse. So we're very much in the same vein or same logic as you on this.
Let me sum up something. These companies are playing to your addiction. The addiction is when you have money, I don't want anybody else to have it but me. So that plays into the one-on-one for these whales in the ocean. Well, I want to have the only one, and money is no object. And that's what you call a dummy. Okay, I'm done now with that. I've said what I need to say.
But everyone does think one-on-ones is an opportunity. Obviously, you have shared your opinion on these, but you mentioned it a bit earlier, but this is where I kind of want to get into it. When you said that you're trying to stay ahead of the game, as much as you want to share today, what are some opportunities maybe in the collectible space?
Here's what I would do. Let's say you're a collector who has a middle income. Okay, let's talk about most people have a middle income they want to collect. And there's room for people that don't have any money, and there's room for people that have a lot of money, but it's a bell-shaped curve. Let's talk about the people that have limited resources, but have affordable resources to collect. So this is a mature business. So what I've told people that call me, I said, collect leader cards. You know, like in the 62 set, the subsets, the leader cards, because they have all the Hall of Famers on them. And you're not going to have to pay a fortune. So there's sleepers out there. That's one thing. You get a leader card, you get Colfax, Clemente, you get leader cards from Whitey Ford, Mickey Mantle. I mean, they're amazing. Like the 62 leader cards, 62 set, 63. That's where they are affordable. The second thing that I advise people is, look, let's say you line up 10 PSA 5s of PSA 5s of Sandy Colfax, okay? They're all going to look different because they're graded by different people. So what I tell people is, don't worry about so much the corners, but look at the op. Does it pop? Is the printing pop? Is it clean? So I tell people, look, who are the kings of modern collecting? Mantle, Colfax, Williams, Pete Rose. Stay within the rails. Don't collect oddball stuff. Stay within the rails. Don't collect Philadelphia Phillies for 1960s. Don't collect Washington Senators, even though you live in Washington. If you're going to collect mid-grade cards, you collect the stars because they'll never lose their value, and you'll maybe sustain what you paid for them and make a little money if you ever sell them. That's my advice. Now that I've given you some information, I'm going to send you an invoice that you're going to start to collect leader cards. I want a piece of the action.
I can tell you were an attorney.
Yes. Very good with the paperwork.
All right. So, Marshall, I had a question about population counts and population control. And what I mean by that is, for example, that PSA 10 Mickey Mantle card, there are a certain number of them in the world. That is the population of PSA 10. And so there may be, 100 PSA 6s, 1,000 PSA 1s. A trend we're noticing is, or has come up, is that PSA is doing population control. What I mean by that is, in a new label or cards that are PSA is newly grading, they're kind of saying, we can't give away so many 10s. We need to keep the population under control and spread it out nicely among a lot of grades. Do you think that PSA is doing that or ever has done that? Or do you think they're pretty straightforward with what the grade is of the card?
Well, I think it's intuitive. I think there's a genre out there that what's happening is the grading has become more difficult to get a high grade. And that's not because they're manipulating the market. It's because when I started collecting, if you look at the serial numbers on the cards, the ones that start with 0 and have a diagonal line through it, that's the earlier grades. And there was more really minty stuff available. So what's happened is, because the minty grades of high-end cards are in strong hands, like people like myself that don't sell. The only reason you're going to get these great collections: death, divorce, and bankruptcy. Those three things will bring to market the kind of stuff that the whales in the ocean collect. So now what you have is, in answer to your question, are they controlling the market? Of course. I think there is a control factor in how many high-grade cards they're going to grade of the major stars. I think they're really tightening up on the ones like 15 Cracker Jacks, the Babe Ruth Goudies, the Mantle cards. And the problem is that when you send in a card, they're benefiting from the profit on the card. So it used to be every card you sent in was $8, no matter what it is. Now, if you send in a Mantle card and it gets an 8, they're going to get $50,000, $75,000 to grade the card. So they can't grade them at $8. So they make, if you can't send in a card and you say you think it's a 7, okay, and it turns out to be an 8, they'll bill you for extra money to grade it an 8. I don't know if that's good or bad. A lot of dealers are complaining that the cards to get graded today are too expensive, especially commons. So it's a complicated question. I kind of look at it as a Clint Eastwood movie. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly in all this card grading stuff. The good is card grading is, I think, helps people feel comfortable about collecting. Is it a smooth operation? Is it fair all across the board? Not when you have people giving subjective grades, because not everybody's going to agree. You've probably seen a card that looks like that's an 8 that looks like a 6, and a 6 that looks like an 8. So you have to be, as a collector, if you see an 8, you got to make sure you think it's an 8. It's a lot of work to collect this stuff.
Well, it is a lot of work, and there's a lot to learn, which is why we're very happy to have you on, because I know Nick and I are learning a lot today. And the good, the bad, and the ugly reference, I can't help but think of the theme song. It's playing in my head right now, that flute theme song. Oh, that's good. That's good. Marshall, I don't know the first thing about Type 1 photos. I don't know if you've gone down this. You probably have, because I know that you collect a lot of nice photos. But what is your opinion on Type 1 photos? Can you just help educate me and the audience a bit on what it is? To me, I almost just don't believe it. I don't know how it's possible to really understand that this was kind of the first photo, but I'm ignorant to the subject. So what can you tell me about Type 1 photos?
Well, Henry E. and I wrote the book on photographs. Before we wrote the book in 2005, and before we invented the definition of Type 1, 2, and 3, and 4, photos weren't worth a lot of money, because you have to have authentication to get people to understand the value of anything. So it's like a PSA 8 of Ted Williams and 54 Topps #1. That's worth a lot of money, as opposed to if you never had it graded. Same with photos. Type 1 through 4 is a process that Type 1 is like a PSA 10. It basically is taken by a photographer, where the negative, the photo is taken from the original negative and produced on paper within a 2-year period. Sometimes you can identify that it's a Type 1 by the stamp on the back. Is it Atwell and Burke? Is it Charles Conlon, Carl Horner? So you will never understand how it works, because you have to send it in, and dummies like me and Henry, who have nothing else to do but wonder what it is, we figure it out, and you buy it. So Type 2 is photo from an original negative developed after 2 years. The reason the 2 year period is because sometimes magazines didn't print every week, they would print periodically. Type 3 are wire photos, like where the descriptions of, it's called a slug, is embedded in the front of the photo. And type 4 is a pile of, is stuff you see on the internet for $4.99. It's a photo of a photo. It's a copy of a copy. It's down the line. What's happened in the market is they use these type 1 photos are really rare. So how do you collect them? It's complicated. What if they're creased? What if they're missing paper? What if the condition isn't there? So again, look, the theme that runs through all this interview is simply this. You got to know what the hell you're doing. You have to learn how to collect. You cannot learn how to collect by relying on everybody else. You have to figure out what is worth collecting, and whether it's really real, and what is the sub theme of your collecting. So I don't like guys saying, well, it's an 8, I'm going to buy it, or it's a type 1. What's the image about? Why do you want it? What's the story behind the photograph? That brings us to another problem. They're using photographs for photo matching on uniforms. Well, there's a problem with that. If you go to Getty Images and you take a photo of Babe Ruth, okay, and you try to photo match it to a uniform, you can Photoshop that photo and make it match whatever you want. So if you're going to get into this photo matching stuff, you better call and make sure they're using a type 1, because you can't Photoshop a type 1. And you got to make sure that the people doing the photo match are not incredible, that they're credible people. And I think I would do this. If I'm collecting a uniform worth $250,000, I'm going to require the photo matching people to sign an affidavit if they used a digital photo that they didn't Photoshop it. That's what I would do before I spend $250,000.
Love it.
And now I'm going to make people mad about that, but you're going to spend $250,000. There are several photo matching businesses, and if they don't want to sign an affidavit that digital photo was not messed with, I wouldn't buy the uniform. That's the story of photographs. Some people collect pinbacks. Some people collect London coins. Some people collect flip books. Some people collect game-used gloves. You could spend hours with me on taking each subject and digging deep about what you need to know to collect. You have no idea. If you're going to collect a game-used glove of Hank Aaron or Willie Mays or Robin Yount or Brooks Robinson, I'm telling you, it takes hours to learn whether they're real. So I'm trying to impress the people that are watching this is you gotta, this is not a hobby anymore. This is money. And you're gonna, if you don't learn how to do this, you're gonna get ripped off. How much clearer can I make it? You'll get ripped off. Because your addiction is so bad that you don't have time to learn what you're doing. I'm old enough to say the way I say. You know what? I'm bulletproof, so I don't need anything. But I like to tell how it really is out there, and the responsibility you have as a collector to be sharp, to be on the ball.
All right. Well, that was part 2, LZ. That was that was a good one. It was great to ask him about the current state of the hobby and his opinion on current events. So what did you catch from this part? What's top of mind?
Top of mind to me was his respect for both PSA and Fanatics. There is a lot of respect across the table from him. Like, he talked glowingly about Michael Rubin and Nat Turner. Yeah, I think he respects them both as businessmen.
In different ways too. You know, he's like,
Mm-hmm.
Turner's great in this way. He's a tech guy, smart. And then he's like, Ruben's a hustler. He sold bicycles.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of cool I didn't even know that about either of them,
I didn't
really.
either. Well, I
Yeah.
knew that about
Yeah.
Nat. I
Nat.
did not know that. I did not know that perhaps Michael Rubin's origin story was selling bicycles out of his
Right.
garage.
Yeah. Cool.
That was pretty cool. And I think, we tried to like probe him as much as we could to really predict what's going to happen with them. And he kind of just jokingly said that they're gonna duke it out. I think he used the reference of two Humpty Dumptys sitting on the wall and trying to push each other off, which is cute. I like
Better,
that.
he said, better than Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah, better than Star Wars. You're right. He did. So that was the first thing that stood out to me. I have others, but I don't want to swallow them all up. What was the first thing that stood up for you?
One thing that was funny to me, we had planned to ask him about Type 1 photos because me and you were just kind of like, what is this whole thing?
Yeah.
The dude literally wrote the book on Type
Oh,
1
man.
photos. He's like, yeah, I wrote that. Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, and this is 4. 4 you get at Costco, 3 is this, 2 is that. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, it's just like, he's like the guy who
I know.
started.
It's so funny. I opened that question basically admitting that I'm completely ignorant to this topic. Literally talking to the guy who invented it. It's
Yeah, you read the room fast.
I did. I did
was
read the room
awesome.
fast with that one. Yeah,
Uh,
that was wild. It makes me want to dig up that book because even when he started describing it, he quickly like whipped off like, all right, well, if it's a Type 1, it's got to have this stamp on the back, and he talked about a few like companies.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh shoot,
I need to rewatch that like 4
Yeah.
times. It was just
Yeah.
really a lot of information.
Mm-hmm. And I would say to the audience, like, if you're interested in this, there is a book. We'll try to find it and maybe put a
Yeah.
link
When
in
I
the
get it,
show
I'll put
notes
it.
if we can, or we'll just reach out to Marshall. He can
Sure.
he can give us the name of that book. All right. The big one for me in this segment was one of ones, Nick.
Yeah. Addicts. We're all addicts.
We're all addicts. He said, the more you pay, the more they'll make.
Oh, dude, I have that in my notes right here, man. So that was some deep stuff. And honestly,
Yeah.
We do live in the United States. For better or worse, it is capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
For better or worse, you can debate different economics, right? And in a capitalistic society, that is exactly how it works.
Sure.
As a collector, now I'm thinking like, okay, we got this one of one. We're paying this much for it. What does the company making it think? Of course they're going to print more.
Yeah.
Of course they will. So the only place
they
you're
see
safe,
these auction houses where these one of ones are going for like 200 grand. What are they going to do next year? They're going to print more one of ones.
Of course they will. They'll be triple the one of ones.
Yeah.
And the only safe space is something they can't print anymore.
I know.
Now, to be fair, like some of these one of ones will hold value, but what Marshall said was the value is coming from I don't want to swear on the show, but people with like a certain amount of money, right? Like the whales in the ocean, I think he said, they just want to own these. It's like bragging rights. Yeah, well, I got the Wemby Black 101. Well, yeah, well, I got the super duper double blend Wemby Black 101 on my yacht. What do you think of that? And it's just it's contrived, like
create a zebra
contrived.
one, a tiger stripe one next year. Like this is, and we absolutely. I mean, I fall into it too. I have one of ones. I mean, I even try to get some like random one of ones or at least numbered cards signed because I'm like, oh, it's going to increase the value even more if I get this numbered card signed. Yeah, maybe it is a little bit, but next year when they come out with more numbered cards, like, is it really?
I hope it makes people rethink it.
Yeah.
I don't think it will, but this guy's a goat. He's collected stuff for a reason. His stuff became valuable. It wasn't made to be valuable like these one of ones.
You said that.
And
yes.
It's like you've got to take a lesson from that here. You really do with what you're collecting. Just try to make it a little more scarce and less contrived. It's so important because they're just going to make more every single year. They're going to make more.
I mean, to you and I, Nick, and the audience, this was an incredible opportunity for all of us to listen to Marshall, who has been around the block. He has been around the block. He has seen so many ups and downs in this hobby. And when he calls out that we should be paying attention to these one of ones, we need to take notice.
Yeah.
We have to. Yeah. Have to. Um, I have one other one.
Mhm.
This one is around opportunities we asked him.
Yeah,
And he had mentioned opportunities. He went to Nick, to your point, it's like things that can't be made. He went straight to vintage.
he did.
He called out the leader cards, like the
Mhm.
1962, 63.
I
I
didn't even
did.
know what those were. I'm not a
Yeah.
huge baseball guy, so that's probably why.
Mm.
But I started looking into them,
Yeah.
looking into
Yeah.
ones that are still alive that could autograph them. I went right
Oh,
straight down my rabbit hole.
jeez. Did you? Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I didn't go that far. I was just more kind of seeing what the inventory was like out there, and they are affordable.
Yeah, they
Um,
are. They're nice too.
yeah, it, I, it will just be interesting, right? Because you look at those cards and you're like, oh, these are just the inserts. These are like the inserts that usually are worth nothing. But 1962 inserts,
Yeah,
yeah, maybe,
signed by the guy
yeah, with
potentially for
Sandy
free.
Koufax,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, so that was interesting. He also said just look at eye appeal. Like I think he used the example, if you have 5 PSA fives in front of you, they're not all the same. Every one of them is going to be different.
yeah.
So you
Different grader, different time.
always go after the one that has the best eye appeal. Which sounds obvious, but I think in the heat of the moment when we're looking at cards, if we're at a card show,
Yeah,
maybe we don't think about that.
buy the card, not the grade.
Yeah.
That's a good
Hmm.
mantra.
Yep.
Um, because the graders have different. It's like music.
Hmm.
That song. It only sounded like that one time on the 57th take of the album. It sounded different every other time. Same thing with the grader's opinion, man. It's the same
That's
thing.
it. I know.
So
Yeah.
cool. That was a really good. That was a really good like current state of affairs. Like
Yes.
getting an OG opinion on that.
Hmm.
So yeah, so just for the audience again, we've got one more part we're going to air of this. It's going to come out next Sunday. This is actually kind of a unique one. LZ and I always like to learn from successful people. We spun it a different way and we kind of asked Marshall what his keys to success were. Collecting, sure, like in collecting, but also in life. He's been successful. He was a litigating attorney for quite some time. He seems very happy at his age, very fulfilled. And for somebody in their 40s, we wanted to pick his brain and just learn a bit more about that. What's his definition of success? So look for that one next Sunday.
Yeah, I'm the most excited, or was the most excited about this segment because I
Sure.
wanted to get into that life advice. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, great.
Good stuff. Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.